fellow diamond painting addicts, and welcome back to Diamond Painting Anonymous. I'm Daphne, and I'm here today with a video that is about what I don't do when I diamond paint. So I was thinking recently and trying to come up with ideas for videos and content and whatnot, and I went down a rabbit hole looking at all different kinds of things, and suddenly one of the things that popped into my head was, gosh, there's just a lot of stuff that I don't do when I diamond paint that I think quote unquote typical diamond painters do. So I sat down and made a list of those things, and after I made the list I thought, this would be interesting to share with the viewers and see what they think. So I've made a list of the top 5 things that I don't do when I diamond paint that I think are kind of atypical. And so I'm going to share them with you while I'm working on my Jasper C. So let me zoom in to where I'm going to be working, just so there's kind of something on the screen for you guys to look at while I'm discussing all of these. I'll probably throw some pictures and other things on the screen as well, but if you want to just diamond paint while you listen, that's cool too. All right, I've got my timer started. I'm just going to grab some black here because that way I can do some small bits of multi-placing while I'm talking. So things that I don't do when I diamond paint. I think when you first start diamond painting, you just use the tools that they give you, obviously, because you don't have any other ones, probably. So you use the small bow, the plate of wax, the pink pen. But I don't think you get very far into your diamond painting adventure before you realize that those tools are maybe not the best tools for diamond painting. Everybody has their own preferred way to work, which is why I say this is kind of a list of what typical diamond painters do. Everybody is different. Not everybody is going to do the same thing. Some people are perfectly happy with how they're doing things, and that's great. Whatever makes you happy is what you should do. I share all the time on the channel the things I do when I diamond paint, and I've said many times that I love to see how other people work because maybe I can learn something from it. Maybe they found a shortcut or a better way of doing things that I would like better than what I'm currently doing. My thinking tends to be very logical and linear sometimes, and so I just will see somebody doing something and think, well, why didn't I think to do that? Like when somebody suggested that when I was storing my spare drills that I separate my square and round instead of keeping them all together. And I thought, that's such a genius idea and it's so simple. Why didn't that ever occur to me? But it hadn't. So I like to see how other people do things to see if I can learn anything. And like I said, even if it ends up being something that I don't like or that I don't adopt, it's at least interesting to learn how other people are doing things. So in that vein, like I said, I came up with 5 things that I don't do, because some of the things are probably things that other people skip as well or don't do. And I probably could have added more to this list, but I just wanted to stick with 5. And then I wanted to ask you guys. So be thinking about, as we go through the list, what things do you not do that maybe a typical diamond painter does? So number 5 on my list is I don't use the pink wax. You guys have seen many a time me talking about the fact that I don't like the wax. Part of the reason that I don't like the wax is I am what they call a heavy placer. I press down very firmly when I put my drills on the canvas. I don't know if that's just a typical thing because of the way I learned how to write. I don't know if I'm just typically heavy-handed with things. I don't know. But because I am heavy-handed, what I would find out that I was doing was I would have wax leftovers all over my canvas, and trying to scrape wax off of a canvas is not fun. And I was getting so frustrated with it. Also, my very first Diamond Art Club had AB drills, which wax does not play nice with, and I was getting super frustrated because I couldn't understand why every time I tried to place an AB drill, it was pulling the wax out of my pen. I was about ready to pull my hair out by the end of a section of that painting. And my lovely husband went on and did some Googling and found me some nail pencils, wax pencils that I could use. And that was my first foray into something other than the pink wax. I also didn't like how the wax looked after using the pen for a while, because if you're not aware, single placers are the steel ones are all in one. So there's no hole in them. When you're looking at the barrels of a pink pen, the barrel has a hole in it. So air can go all the way through. I don't know why that's necessary or if that's just the way they happen to make them, but I hated watching the wax as I kept putting more in my pen because I had to use more wax because I was a heavy placer and I seemed to go through it really quickly. And I would get this wax kind of traveling up through the pen and it was just, ugh. So I don't use the pink wax. And I mean, I've had people tell me that they can do an entire diamond painting or even multiple diamond paintings with 1 square of wax. If that works for you, then hey, have at it. But I love my glue dots. Once I discovered glue dots and somebody else using them and I tried them, I was absolutely hooked. I only use glue dots in my single placers, but I get so many comments about how do you get that pop sound when you diamond paint? Well, glue dots, that's how I do it. And once I've used them, I've never ever gone back to the pink wax. I have so much pink wax sitting around my house because I hate to just throw it away and let it go to waste, but I don't know what someone else would do with it other than diamond paint. I send it out in random acts of kindness and the like if somebody wants it. I have quite a bit I'm going to have to get rid of here when I put a couple more mystery boxes together because I'm not carrying it all the way to Canada. And I'll always get replacements, right? So yeah, after using the glue dots and all the popping, never going to go back to the pink wax. And I don't use glue dots in my multi-placers. I use putty, but I still prefer it greatly over the pink wax. It just works better for me. Again, some people love the pink wax and that's all they'll use. And if it works for you, great. Keep doing what you're doing. It wasn't working for me, so I found an alternative. All right, what else don't I do? As you can see by this diamond painting, I don't section my diamond paintings using washi tape. I love people who use this method because it makes for amazing pictures. And when I'm on Instagram, that's what I want to see, everybody's amazing diamond painting pictures. And it's really cool to see how when you use that method, you know, somebody starts wherever they start in the canvas, so you can still see the rest of the image. It's not covered up, but you can see where they've laid the drills, and it just makes for a really interesting picture, I think, as someone who diamond paints, to kind of watch their progress. However, when I tried this method, I was using one of the ceramic cutters, and I was absolutely terrified because I am heavy-handed and a heavy placer, that I was going to cut through my entire diamond painting all the way to the back when I was just trying to cut the washi tape and the cover sheet, because I would use enough pressure that I thought I would get through both, and I would only get through the washi tape. And then I'm trying to peel up the cover sheet, and the cover sheet would tear and all that nonsense. And it just was more stress than it was worth. Now, thanks to Jess's amazing seam ripper tip, I don't have to worry about possibly cutting through my canvas anymore. If you haven't heard the seam ripper tip, basically Jess's tip was section your diamond painting with washi and then use your seam ripper to kind of glide through. So that bottom piece of the seam ripper keeps you from cutting into your canvas because that cutter blade is in that curved part. So it would just cut through the cover sheet and the washi tape. And it worked really well. I tried it. However, still didn't work for me. The reason being that my brain gets overwhelmed too easily. So for instance, on using this particular diamond painting, I didn't print out enough cover sheets. I just put enough on here that I could do about half of the painting. But I like to have the cover sheets, whether they're printed or just plain white, because I find that my brain gets too overwhelmed if I don't have the cover sheets, because I can still see the whole painting. So when I'm working on a section like this section here, if I'm going to go past where I have my cover sheet, then I've got to lift up my cover sheet and see where's that at, all that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I tend not to do it. But if this was just a clear cover sheet, I would be able to see, oh, well, that drill just goes here. Oh, there's only 2 more of that color right there. And so I end up drill chasing colors everywhere and going outside that little section that I've set for myself. And that just causes anxiety and I get overwhelmed, and it becomes really hard to find a good place to stop. So just I find for myself, it's easier and better for me if I have cover papers, release papers, whatever you want to call them, so that I can make more specific delineations on the sections that I'm actively working on versus sections that I don't need to worry about yet. Does that make sense? And I realize my brain doesn't work like everyone else's. You're glad about that, trust me. I need to focus on what I need to focus on, and narrowing that down so that I'm not distracted by other things really helps me. I can work the other way, it's just not my preferred method. So if I'm going to work on stuff, I want to do the things that make me the most happy, the most comfortable, and that is the way that I prefer to work. I still love seeing all the cool pictures, but I'll stick with my release papers. Plus, now that I know how to make my own, I can make all kinds of cool ones for myself. So these, for example, are just basically, I took the image of the painting and printed it out on what I'm using for release paper. And now I have these cool cover sheets that look like the painting, so I can look at it while I'm doing whatever I'm working on. I did the same thing previously with, I didn't make cover sheets, I made stickers, but I did that with Lenore and Gamer Girl and a couple of others, so I enjoy that part of it. Anyway, so I don't section my paintings using washi tape. I do use the washi tape on the edges to cover up any extra glue that is outside the edges of where I want to diamond paint, but other than that, I don't really section using washi tape. I stick with my release papers. All right, number 3. What's number 3 on the list of things I don't do? I don't kit up small projects like special drills. Anything that has 15 colors or less, I generally don't actually kit up the project. I don't work from the baggies either. You guys know how I feel about baggies. I'm too clumsy. I just dump stuff everywhere. So when I have a kit like that, and I know I'm going to finish it quickly in just a few hours, what I will do is just open one color, dump it all into the tray, and diamond paint the entire painting of that color. Then I'll open the next color, go through that, etc. I may not go through the colors in the order that they're on the canvas, but I do one color at a time. I feel like I'm wasting time to kit up projects that small because it just feels like a waste of time. So I just don't do it. But I know people who kit up every single thing that they do. Part of what I enjoy about diamond painting is that kitting up process, kind of organizing all the chaos that is the bags of diamond drills that you get when you get a new kit and all that kind of stuff. But when it's something small, like I said, and I know I'm going to finish it in just a matter of hours, I don't do it. And typically when I'm doing a project like that, it's generally not something I'm going to be sharing on the channel anyway, so it's not a big deal that I'm not kitting it up and all that. All right. Number 2. What is number 2 on my things I don't do? And this is going to seem kind of strange, but you're watching me do it here. I don't really use large multi-placers. Now, I know this one seems large, so let me explain. I have large multi-placers. I have everything from 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I even have a 15 placer. However, I have never used my 12 or 15 placer. It does take a bit of work to learn how to use a multi-placer. So I know there are lots of people who only single place, and if that works for you, great. I'm not telling you to do anything differently. I do like to multi-place, however, typically because I'm trying to usually work fairly quickly to try and get projects done because I have things that I want to get finished so that I can share them on the channel, which means I typically work at a faster pace, a much faster pace than most people who just diamond paint for their own enjoyment. Nothing wrong with that, just that I have that added incentive in the back of my mind. I want to finish this so that I can share this, so that I can move on to share whatever the next thing is. Not that I'm not enjoying my diamond painting, not that I'm trying to necessarily rush through them. Sometimes I am, but not always. So I do use multi-placers. But what I have found is when I am multi-placing, if I do much more than 4, 5, 6 drills at a time, even large multiplacers just don't hold the drills correctly. They're not evenly spaced. And so I find myself having to spend a lot of time going back and trying to adjust all the drills so that they're evenly spaced. And while I try really hard not to be too particular and fussy with my drills, if they're really obviously out of line, that bothers me. So to kind of minimize extra fuss time where I'm fidgeting with the drills and trying to straighten them up with a straightener or whatever the case may be, I find that if I stick to multi-placing smaller amounts of drills at a time, I don't have to worry about that. So between 4 and 6 is kind of my sweet spot. So even though I'm using this big multiplacer, I'm only putting 4 to 6 drills on it max at a time to line everything up. And I just find that that works better for me. Like I said, I own the bigger multiplacers, but I've never used my 12 or 15. They are as pristine as the day I got them. In fact, I don't even think I've taken the 12 placer out of the box yet. So I just prefer to stick to what feels comfortable for me. Seeing like right there, that last one kind of is not where I wanted it. So I'm going to straighten it up a bit. But I don't want to spend all of my time feeling like I have to fuss with my drills and do all those kind of things. So it's just much easier, like I said, if I stick to that kind of sweet spot for me, which is between 4 and 6, and then I don't have to spend all of my time feeling like I need to go back and adjust the drills that I just put down because they didn't space out quite evenly. And some of it is not, some of it has to do with multiplacer, some of it has to do with the canvas that you're working on. I think that's why some people tend to find a company they like, a diamond painting company they like, and then stick with it because you get used to how their products work. And so using a different company's product kind of takes you out of that headspace that a lot of us get into when we're diamond painting, and people don't like that. So I totally get the brand loyalty and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I'm just more interested in learning and seeing how people do things and trying out new stuff, which is kind of funny that I like to do that in my diamond painting because I'm very much not that way in many other areas of my life. So yeah, even though, like I said, this is probably, I think this is a 10 placer, I don't put 10 drills on it because when I do that, I find that I have to go back and adjust everything way too often. So instead I will put a multiplacer like this on my pen, but I will stick to doing, like I said, anywhere from 4 to 6 drills at a time. I can place 1 drill at a time using this multiplacer if I want, but even if I'm just doing 2 or 3, whatever, I'm still good to go using this bigger multiplacer. I guess that also goes along with, I don't use those multiplacer tools where you can have like 5 or 6 different multiplacers on at once. I'm perfectly happy using this 10 placer and using this 10 placer to place 6, 5, 4, 3 drills at a time. I don't need to have all of those different multiplacers loaded up and on a tool for me ready to go. I can just do it this way, and it works just as well for me. Okay, you guys, are you ready? This is the number one thing that I don't do when I diamond paint, and I'm always amazed at the number of people who seem shocked and absolutely horrified that I don't do this. I don't use a light pad. I have a light pad, but I don't use it. Even when I was doing very confetti heavy paintings like my Heaven and Earth Designs Crown Jewel canvas, when I was doing my J walls, I did not use the light pad. Now, I tried using it with my Diana, didn't like it. I did use it somewhat with my Heaven and Earth design because there were a lot of very dark symbols, but it actually made it more confusing to me. When I use a light pad, I feel like the light underneath it actually changes the color of the symbols for me, and it makes it actually more difficult for me to kind of discern between the symbols. I don't know, I was trying to think of how to describe how it looks when I use a light pad. I think it's almost like a photo negative. It just makes weirdly, in a lot of ways for me, everything darker, which just makes it that much more difficult to see. And because it's more difficult, that just makes it even more frustrating. I find it much, much easier for me and my sanity to diamond paint in a well-lit area. So I diamond paint usually, for the most part, in our living room. I have a big overhead light that I use. I turn that on, the one in our living room. And then I also have a desk light that sits over my desk. So I have light coming in from all directions, and I have one very focused light that lets me see what I am doing much, much better. I also don't use a light pad because, I don't know, I think a lot of people work on easels. Maybe that's something else that I should have included in the list. A lot of people work on easels or drafting tables, and so their work is tilted. I prefer to work with my diamond painting flat on a table like I have here. I know a lot of people don't do that because you can develop back problems, shoulder issues. I don't have any of those so far. I actually feel pretty good diamond painting sitting how I am. So this is my preference. So I don't know if that has something to do with why people feel like they need a light pad. Maybe my eyes are just weird. Who knows? I have had laser surgery on my eyes, so maybe that changed something in them as well. I don't know. But I just don't use a light pad. And every time I tell people that I don't use one, it's a bunch of, oh, what? You don't use a light pad? Nope. I have one, like I said, but I very rarely use it. Even when I'm checking a diamond painting to see if I've missed any drills or anything, because putting a light source underneath it will make any gaps that where you missed a drill or whatever very apparent. I rarely use it for that either. I would much prefer to just hold up my diamond painting to a light in the room where I am, or I have a flexible neck on my desk lamp. I can just turn it and then hold my diamond painting up to it and kind of move it through that light, and that allows me to see whether or not I've missed any drills. So there's my top 5. And one bonus thing that I thought I would finally admit that I don't do, and that is I don't really work on more than one whip at a time. I know you guys see me all the time opening multiple projects, and I do have multiple projects open. So if you want to count that as a whip, then I guess so. I don't count it as a whip until I actually have drills laid down on the canvas. And even at that, it may be open and it may be in progress. Whatever makes it onto my diamond painting table, that's what I work on, and I work on that project solely until it's finished. I have tried doing the thing where, and I tried this with my J-wall and it didn't work, where I just take it out, I work on it for a little bit, and I put it back. I've sort of done that with this one, but I really only pull it out for when I need to do a whip and chat or something, and what I'm working on is either something you guys have seen a million times, or it's something I don't want you to see yet, or I'm almost finished with it, so I don't want to show you guys it until I'm completely finished, whatever the case may be. So I want to pull something out for a whip and chat. But this particular one, while I was working on the J-wall, unless I pulled it out for a whip and chat, it stayed on my closet door. All my other canvases that I have opened that you've seen are hanging on my closet door because I have one project that I'm currently working on. That's going to stay on my table until I'm done with it. Once I'm done with it, then I will move on to something else. I tried for probably a good 6 months, starting sometime last year, to actively work on more than one at a time. I can't do it. My brain just doesn't like it. I find myself drawn to, but I need to work on this one because that one isn't finished yet. So that's what I need to do. But I don't. It just ends up going back on my closet door until I have time to concentrate solely on it, and it makes it onto my work table. That is one of the reasons that I actually ended up moving my Josephine wall onto my diamond painting table, because I knew if I didn't, I was never going to finish it. So there you go, guys, my top 5 things that I do not do as a diamond painter. So I'm curious, leave me a comment down below and let me know what things didn't I mention that you don't do. There are a couple of other things that I thought of as I was going through. Like I said, I don't use an easel or a drafting table in order to work. I don't typically roll my canvases. There's a ton of things out there that I think we all think everybody does, but maybe they don't. So leave me a comment and let me know what thing leapt to your mind that you don't do that you think most typical diamond painters do. Does that make sense? I'm saying do and don't a lot. I got quite a bit accomplished there, even though I'm not multi-placing more than 5 or 6 drills at a time, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to fuss with some of these here for a minute. Okay, so I try to that's all I allow myself. I fussed with those. I'm going to leave it as is. I'll come back to it later, and by the time I'm finished, no one will even know. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end of this kind of rambly video. Before you leave, don't forget to do all the things. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can be informed of future uploads. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching.